in January of this year at the Utah Valley University conference by the faculty, which had an ethical slant to it. So I know Ron's interested in ethics and lots of those other people, but I'm not going to spend much time on that part of it.
I just tell them to sit there and wait for the food to come.
To come back at 6:15.
Last fall at UVU, we had in our department, we had the Dean of Engineering at the University of Utah speak to our special topic students as one of the weekly invited speakers in our lecture series. As part of his presentation, he showed a slide that depicted the numbers of annual PhD production by country over time. They were all showing a shallow increase until the last few years, when China's production began to increase significantly beyond all the other countries. A China website, the People's Daily Online, accessed January 18th, had an article entitled, "China may have more PhDs than the U.S. in 2010. We can easily ask if they are quality PhDs. However, the article chronicles a major initiative in China in 1981 to modernize academic degree programs. They also call for a major emphasis in quality of advanced degrees, and I quote, "Academic accomplishment should be the critical standard for judging the candidate's qualifications." Now, it's interesting to know, let's just interrupt here a minute. Whoops, wrong way. Seems like everybody's having that problem. Here's China. This is green is Japan. And this is the United States, not very impressive. And this light green is South Korea. This statement from the official Chinese media source raises some questions. Was that comment in that particular source because there were quality problems that needed to be corrected, or was it just an admonishment to make sure that improvements in the number of degrees must be accompanied by diligence in quality of programs? People in my university that have had short stints in China universities tell me that the quality of their programs is good. Maybe it's time for us in the West to modernize our programs and eliminate ineffective and hurtful parts of the process. Just a comment there. As I have attempted to complete PhD, let's see, I'm supposed to go one. PhD work, has become apparent that there are a large number of candidates that are PhD ABD, all but dissertation. In becoming aware of individual cases, the reasons for many appear unfair, even in those that have completed the process and been awarded a PhD. The answer to the title question has always been a resounding yes. Many candidates are beset with endless rewrites, mentor changes, subject changes, and other delays for no apparent valid reasons. Many of these result in unwarranted, repeated tuition payments. PhD programs are filled with numerous individually produced research papers and comprehensive exams that require significant research activities. By the time one gets to the dissertation, the individual candidate is well versed in research activity. Now, going back to China, since they're rapidly surpassing other countries, we have to ask ourselves, do we possibly think that they're achieving these results by endless rewrites, mentor changes, subject changes, and temporal delays in their modernized process? However, today's world is all about teams. In fact, many research funding organizations require a team approach with detailed credentials of all team members in order to get funding. The PhD process with current dissertation requirements, as found in many universities, does not adequately prepare the candidate for team-oriented research. My informal conversations with numerous individuals indicate that there are significant problems in the process. The confirming research I am doing involves interviewing many PhDs and PhD ABDs regarding their experience and eliciting ideas for modernizing the process. I've also found problems of a similar nature in some master's level programs. Whoops, there we go. I recently reviewed a large, heavy, thick book called Ethical Theory in Business by Beaucamp and Bowie, and was impressed by the concept of fairness seemed to permeate most of the ethical theories. Dr. Peter Sandman, in his investigations into what causes community and individual outrage, outlines 20 hot buttons that generate outrage. If you're making people outraged in what you do to them, it seems obvious that fairness is an issue. Indeed, Sandman's number 9 on his list addresses fairness specifically. Sandman also indicates that outrage is always emotional and often irrational to deliver the action that caused the outrage. However, he also points out it is always real. While I was in a master's program in technology at Eastern Michigan University, the school sponsored what was called Customer Service Week. The general idea was that the students who pay tuition are the customers in the association, and the faculty and administration are there to provide customer service by doing an excellent job in all their individual activities and making their customers happy in a regular business fashion. That involves not generating outrage among the customers who pay their salaries or tuitions without losing rigor in the process. What are some of the abuses? For the past several centuries, an integral part of the PhD program has been the dissertation. It has been a useful tool to teach people how to do research in a rigorous fashion and how to utilize standardized procedures to present information and research results in a credible fashion. However, there appears to be an increasing number of people who complete all their classes, the comprehensive exams, get started into the dissertation process, and then stop. They are PhD, ABD, all but dissertation. Why is this so? Well, there are many reasons. Some of them are financial. But informal conversations with many of the people I've talked to that are in this category, and several who did eventually get their PhDs, get fed up with the harassment that's part of numerous programs. They're subjected to having large portions of the dissertation tentatively approved only to find out that someone says they need to rewrite the whole thing. This often goes back and forth several times only to have what they originally had done to be the final approved version. This happened to my son, and about the second time that happened, he said, "No." And then he followed up with, "This is not your dissertation. This is my dissertation, and I am not going to change it." And they said, "Okay." So, this harassment also may take the form of mentor changes who do not like your subject, changes in the approved subject, and mentor changes that are for vague reasons. An example of this was in my case, a mentor who was very excited in personally working with me and very excited about my subject. In fact, she suggested the subject, and you remember this one. Then she said, "I don't think I'm the person to be working with you." You remember that? We talked about that. And then said later, "I am personally acquainted with several that have experienced this. In fact, my last mentor said, 'We do that on purpose, just to see how much you'll take.'" I met another that said, paraphrasing, "If I had to go through that process, so do you." You know who I'm talking about, right? In your program there. It is very doubtful that this is relevant to the capabilities of the person. It's illogical. Another reason is financial. The process is purposely strung out so the candidate will have to register for another semester at several $1,000s a semester. One candidate was on the verge of having his Chapter 2 approved and was told to fix a few minor items. The deadline was fast approaching, and after he fixed the 6 minor items, he was told the whole chapter was inadequate and he had to come up with about 50 more references. This bumped him into the next semester and another $3,000. This was essentially my experience, as mentors delayed responses to get the next semester and another $3,300. A year later, this other man who I just told you about, at this point in time, still has not had his dissertation approved. When these problems are coupled with the increasing lack of relevance of the final product to the real world, there are many that just refuse to play the game. One relevance issue is that nearly half, and in fact 46%, of all academic journals in the creativity area have more than one author. Indeed, in my 20 patents, all were more than one author except one. And that's 95% multiple authors. A survey of a dissertation on the hard science medical field showed that 94% of the cited works were multiple authors. If the dissertation is to prepare one for publication, it falls short, because the real world is about teams. In fact, to have a successful grant for research from a major funding organization, such as NIH or NSF, all members of the research team must be named with credentials and what each will continue to the project, or they won't get the money. One can reasonably say that there is a single work author published. Of the 15 PhD level classes I took, all required a well-researched 20 to 40 page paper, and the classes had shorter weekly projects throughout the 15-week term. In addition, the comprehensive exam papers totaled over 60 pages of well-researched information. One would be hard-pressed to say that the curriculum does not prepare the candidate to write single-author academic papers. It is true that many candidates have not done any real-world research. From that standpoint, a research project can help the candidate to get research skills. However, the harassment and delays do not improve the quality, nor teach any important skills. I spoke to a PhD from Stanford, and he told me that no such harassment and delaying took place in his case. And there are other universities, and I think the person I know from Eastern Michigan did not have that experience either. She went right through hers. Their focus in Stanford was on helping the candidate get through the research and get done quickly. This person became a productive researcher 2 to 3 years before others who put up with the harassment and delaying programs. He's also a world-renowned expert in his field. He also feels the dissertation process that most are subjected to is badly broken also. The retiring state superintendent of schools in Utah, Dr. Patty Harrington, told me, with permission to use her name, that had she known what the dissertation process was going to be like, she would not have continued. The harassment is also evident in the defense of the dissertation process that takes place. One candidate who earned a master's degree made his defense presentation. For his own use, he recorded the session. After the questions by the committee were done, he was excused from the room while they made their decision. The recorder was inadvertently left running. An hour or so later, they called him back and told him he passed. When he discovered the discussion on his recorder and he replayed it, he found that only 10 minutes was about the discussion of his work, and the rest of it was just BSing. They just made him sweat. I think the delaying tactics result in the dissertation being made nearly obsolete in many cases by the time it's published. It is well known that the rate of production of new technology, and we're well aware of that in here, is on an exponential curve. And if that's the case, and we look at that curve back there about what we're doing in the United States and in some cases Western Europe, we simply do not have time to go through those kinds of abuses. Now, some of the abuses are especially horrid. A woman I spoke with got all A's in her classes, passed her comps, got her dissertation approved, and then was told that she had a 2-month residency that she had to complete before they would award the degree. Her first mentor made improper sexual advances and gave her an unsatisfactory rating because she refused his advances. She changed mentors, and previous experience totally devastated her. She was denied approval because she was not congenial enough. She got a job as a receptionist at a local university and was quickly promoted because of her obvious talent. Another person in a master's program in neurosciences in an Eastern university completed all classwork except a class in mineralogy. He was told he could not graduate because he did not pass the class. When he asked what was wrong, they could or would not produce the test he supposedly failed, and they refused to let him take the class over. When I asked him what the reason was, he said it was political. He was conservative, and that university was liberal. And I suppose there are political reasons the other way around also. Well, now, in America and our Western countries, we simply cannot afford to use ineffective and delaying tactics and discriminatory practices in the advanced degree process. We cannot afford to put talented people in positions that do not utilize their talents. It is a waste of human assets. Knowledge creation and the world are moving too fast to have antiquated programs. Modernization of the process is critical. Standards to prevent harassment and delays are vital. I'm not sure. Oh, here we go. The educational rigor of an advanced degree helps an individual to better cope with the challenges of life, both professionally and personally. However, society hands us all more than enough difficulties to teach us that life is hard and often unfair and discriminatory. We don't need our educations to amplify on that. Those of us in the SSE are especially aware of this concerning much of our research. Phony rigor in the educational process is not needed and is counterproductive and obstructive to innovation. We should be on the forefront to modernize the process. Any questions? Oh, good. Here comes York. I have a feeling I know what he's going to ask.
Well, just incidentally, I'm another one of those people who sailed through the degree process the way it's supposed to work without any harassment. But it strikes me in particular that most of the abuses that you've described in your talk are exactly what it says on the label, abuses. They're things that should not happen, it seems from the description that it's not so much that the dissertation process is broken as that we're not running it the way it's supposed to be run.
Yeah, I agree. Good point. Yeah.
Hi, there's another layer of abuse here, and that's at the postdoc level. My son was a postdoc in physics at Berkeley for a number of years, and what he told me is that the postdocs and graduate students do the research, the professor publishes it under his own name, and then he added, and when the professor goes to a conference to present it, he makes the whole group meet, and the postdocs and graduate students explain the research to the professor so that he presents it as his own work. When I asked him, well, why do you put up with that kind of a system? He said, well, they need the prof's recommendation to get jobs. Mm-hmm. So it's a kind of blackmail.
Yeah, right, good. One more?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
it's not just at the doctoral level. A friend of mine was working a master's in interdisciplinary program history of science and geology, and after he had all his research done for the master's, his professor stole it. Now, and so he couldn't use it because it was old data because his professor published his data. But there's a certain revenge to this because it was 1978 or 79, and his data was to show that plate tectonics was unreal.
Yeah, I ran into a guy. I gave a talk in a Sunday school class one time and showed the plate tectonics as an International Geophysical Year globe. And it showed they were talking about plate tectonics, and there was a geologist in there that had a fit. He wanted to have me thrown out of the church. One comment on the Chinese data. I thought maybe that was what York was going to comment about, and I was ready for him. The population of China is way far and above that of the United States and other countries. And so you can say that the numbers there might be skewed. The comparison might be skewed because of their higher population. But it's also well to note that the demographics of China are vastly different than they are the United States. There's a lot of third world countries embedded in China. Now, my research project, some of you have picked up some of the questionnaires. I have some here. I would appreciate anybody who's had experiences, both good and bad, to pick up one of the forms and mail it in to me so that maybe we can verify what the extent of this problem is. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you very much, John.